Well, it happened. Right after the video I put out on the dirty air adjustments, I started getting quite a few questions about certain things that I had touched on and alluded to in that video, specifically when it came to the aerodynamics of the next gen car and the Rake. So, in this video, I'm going to cover that with you. I'm going to show you just how temperamental these cars can be and how just a couple of clicks on the spring perch offset can have a huge, huge change on these cars, not only with the amount of downforce, but the balance of downforce on these cars. So stick around. What's up, everybody? Thomas Brennan here. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. And like I said, we're going to be diving into the next gen cup cars. We're going to be doing this, Fast Friday style, which we haven't done in a long time. We're going to be bringing it back. I'm trying, this last year, starting the new glass business. I've been working between the glass business and the online business here. I've been working about 120 hours a week. I've been doing that all year long, and at the time of recording this, it's the middle of November. So it's been a really long year, but I'm not complaining. It's been great. It's been an awesome opportunity, and you just I gotta keep grinding, right? As the philosopher Jay-Z said, he can't knock the hustle. So, anyways, but bad joke. But anyways, like I said just a second ago, after I covered the stuff on dirty air, I got a few questions about the ride heights, the downforce, and the rake of these cars. And so I figured what I would do is we could bring back the Fast Friday stuff and kick it off with the video covering that. With iRacing going to have this asphalt refresh coming, where they've already talked about how the track dynamics are going to be changing and how you're going to see them change even more with the temperatures and how where the cars are running on the track, the energy from the cars, essentially the heat from the cars, will be put back into the track more, and it'll have a more of an effect, and we'll see the groove change on the track. One thing you have to realize is right now in the officials, we don't run with the dust and the marbles. Those are not on the track, okay? So if those things come back, and then we've got all these different changes that can happen with the heat, and we can see the track widen or narrow or the line change, this is very, very important stuff, because with these cars, the slightest adjustment, even now, as the everything is now, can have a huge effect. I wanted to cover this because, like I said, we got a bunch of questions. I'm going to show you some data. I ran some tests at Chicagoland because this is where we are next week, and I've been working on the insider stuff, and so I wanted to show you guys the data. I did a bunch of runs, all the same, exactly the same. All I changed was the ride heights. Everything else was exactly the same, and I'm going to show you guys what we got, because the changes were pretty significant, considering that we're talking about just a couple of clicks on the spring perch offset. So let's head over and take a look. All right, so first things first, let's get 5 minutes on the clock, and let's go. So what we're looking at here, this is Stint Analyzer. I've said this before. If you do not have Stint Analyzer, you need to get it. It is an incredible tool. It is completely free, and you can get it at stintanalyzer.com. Okay, I have no affiliation with them. They would not know me if they tripped over me in the street, but it's a great tool, and like I said, I use it quite a bit. So what I did was, as you can see here, we have 5 identical runs. The way that I did these runs was really, really simple. So each one was 15 laps. I would run the exact same line, and I would do it the exact same way every single time. Now, here's the deal. I pushed the car as hard as I could, okay? So basically, whatever I could get out of the car, get out of the setup, that's what I was getting out of it, and I would do it for 15 laps. And the way that I would run it is I would run 1 lap on the bottom, 1 lap on the top, and I would do that. I would switch it every single lap. I would go bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top, all the way through the run until we got 15 laps, and then I was done. Okay, you can see here that our third run, and keep in mind when I did this, I had it on the to where the weather is not going to be changing, right? Track temp is track temp. It's not like it's going to start and then it's going to have a 10-degree swing. Okay, make sure that the track temp was the same when I did these runs. So what we have here is, you can see here, our third run gave us the fastest results, and it was across the board. We had our fastest lap time, fastest 3-lap average, 5-lap, 7-lap, 10-lap, and 15-lap across the board. Now you'll notice that everything is here is pretty close, except this one. You can see we're a tenth of a second faster, you know, essentially across the board. On the short run here, you know, we had a couple that we were close with. The first and last run were, you know, more than a tenth off. Once we got here to, you can see 15 lap, now you're seeing it even widen more, where we're averaging over 15 laps 30.893 per lap, where these other ones were at 31.0, 31.0, 30.9, 30.97. That's a significant difference when you're talking about over 15 laps. That's the average. So when you start looking at the difference between this setup up here, this first setup, okay, where it was 31.026, and then this middle run right here, you were looking at a difference of 4 clicks in the rear and 4 clicks in the front. That's it. That's the only difference between those two setups. I'm going to show you guys here in Motec here in just a second. Okay, that's it. All right. And when I ran these, it's not like, you know, I had some setup that I wanted to be better or anything like that. Okay, they are exactly the same except for the rake angles. Okay, so when we pull this up, we look at the data now here on the rake angles. First, if we look at the first run, which is what we base this off of, okay, and we'll just leave it here like this. If we go here to aerodynamics, and let's lap 1's on the bottom, lap 2's on the top, so we'll look at these first 2 laps right here. If we look at the rake angle of the car and also what's called the aero platform, and the aero platform is essentially the rake angle. The rake angle is off of the aero platform. So rake angle is in degrees. Aero platform is just the difference in inches. Okay, you can see here that we're averaging negative 0.32 degrees. All right, when we look at that in terms of the aero platform, it's negative 0.6 of an inch. So that means that the rear end is 0.6 of an inch lower than the front. All right, pretty simple. Now, when we look at the next run, which is in white, the white lines, and keep in mind, all I did was I lowered the front 2 clicks on both. When I say 2 clicks, I mean on both spring perches. So I lowered the front, the left front 2 clicks, the right front 2 clicks, then I raised the rear. Okay, raise the left rear 2 clicks, raise the right rear 2 clicks. All right, you can see that we now have a difference of 1/2 of a tenth of a degree. Once again, I know that doesn't sound like much, but it is. And almost 1/10 of an inch in terms of the aero platform, right? Negative 0.61 on average to negative 0.52. Now, when we look at this over the course of, let's just say 10 laps, all right, you'll notice that it's basically, you can see the highs and lows here, and keep in mind that's going into the corner and coming out. Where if we look at lap 1, where we're 0.60 and 0.52, and then we look at, we go here to let's go to lap 10, all right, you can see it's negative 0.959, negative 0.51. Keep in mind, that's where now we've got the fuel burning off, and so that car is changing. This is one of the reasons why we run as much negative rake angle as we do, is because as the fuel burns off, that rear end is going to raise up. And we don't want the car to just be good with a full tank. We need it to be good over the entire run, right? So that's why we always have a little bit more negative rake angle. Now, what you'll see here, if we look at this, and let's just look here at the 10 laps, this is what's really interesting, because even though we lowered the front, okay, on this, remember in the white, we dropped the front a couple clicks, raised the rear a couple clicks. So even though we have the car flattened out more, okay, you can see here that our downforce balance actually changed. You would think by doing that, hey man, shouldn't we generate more downforce on the front and not as much on the rear if we're doing that, because that's the whole reason why we run that negative rake angle, is to make sure we're getting the downforce on the rear. But that's the thing with these cars, they're very temperamental, and it's all dependent upon the springs that you're running, the ARB, all of this stuff matters. It all matters. So on the first run, we were averaging 205 pounds of applied downforce on the front. I talked about this in the other video. Applied downforce is just the load that is being applied to the car while it's on the track. It's taking out the static load or anything like that. It's just what is being applied on that corner of the car, both the left front and right front, as we're going around the track. Okay, and it takes into account the spring rates and the motion ratios, all that stuff like that. And so we were averaging 205 pounds around the track. Keep in mind, before I start getting messages, I go through this every time I talk about Motec, I know that these numbers are not accurate in terms of the actual data. I don't care about them being accurate in terms of the actual numbers. What I care about is the difference. That's what I look for. Because when we look at this compared to the one where we dropped the nose and raised the rear, we were generating more downforce on the rear and actually less downforce on the front, even though we changed that rake angle. Our downforce balance went from having 40% front downforce, 60% rear, to 38% front downforce, 62% rear. That's a big change, okay? That's a really big change in terms of the downforce balance on the car, right? You're talking about a 2% swing, right? In terms of front and rear. That's a big deal. So that was just a couple of clicks. Now, when we look at V3, which is really interesting, keep in mind this was our fastest one. All right, we dropped the front even more, raised the rear even more. So we went 2 clicks down further on the front, 2 clicks up further on the rear. And what you'll notice is although we're not as extreme as we were on the previous one, we've balanced the car back out a little bit closer to what we were. So now we're 39% on the nose and 61 on the rear. Okay, and we're generating more downforce on the rear than the first run, which has got the most negative rake angle, and our front downforce numbers have actually gotten closer to what the other ones were. So we've dropped that nose more, we've increased that downforce over that previous run, okay, where our initial one, which was this one right here, all right, and now we've changed that balance even more. And if you look at what that rake angle was, right, or what that aero platform was, and let's take a look at this here. Let me drag this out. You can see that we went from negative 0.31 to now we're at negative 0.22, and that's on average. That's all the way around the track over the course of that run. It's almost a full 1/10 of a degree. On the aero platform side, it's almost 0.2 of an inch. We went from negative 0.6 to negative 0.43. And so after doing the run, this was obviously the fastest one. And so now we know, hey, at this track with this setup, and keep in mind, this is what's really important, right? It's not just about the rake angle. It's the springs and the shocks and the cross weight and the nose weight. All of that goes together. It's not as simple as just saying, hey, do X, Y, Z, and you're going to be fast. This is why you can have so many different setups with these cars. And it's one of the reasons why I tell people all the time, get the thing balanced and comfortable, then start working on finding your speed. Get consistent first, then you'll find your speed. Because even something as simple as dropping the front end a couple of clicks and raising the rear end a couple of clicks can have a huge outcome when it comes to your lap times. All right, you guys, so that is going to do it all for this Fast Friday video. I know that I went way over the 5 minutes, but I wanted to cover this because, like I said, I had been asked questions about it a bunch since I put out that dirty air video. I've also been asked a bunch of questions about the ARBs, on these cars. And so I will be doing another video on those, you know, Fast Friday video where I talk about the ARBs, because there's a lot of stuff that people don't fully understand about those, and they don't really fully understand where those are affecting the car the most. Most people think of them as just, oh, they just keep the car from rolling, and hence the name anti-roll bar, but they do a lot more, especially when it comes to the loading of the car. So I'll be doing a Fast Friday video on that here probably in the next week or two, so keep an eye out on that. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel and you want to make sure that you catch that, make sure to subscribe. But anyways, you guys, that's gonna do it. I hope this video helped you. You know, the number one thing to always remember with these cars, the next gen cars, they're so close, and you know, the draft, the air, they're just so tight, right, in terms of the racing, and they're very temperamental. And like I said, they're not going anywhere. Even if NASCAR this offseason makes big changes to these cars, they're still, the bodies, the air, all that stuff's going to be, the physics of it are going to remain the same, right? There might be some tweaks that you have to make with the setup overall, but understanding the car is what matters. That's why I always try to teach you guys how to understand these things, because if you know why stuff happens or how it works, right, what makes it tick, then you can actually go in and say, hey man, you know, this is what's happening, and I know that these things affect that. And when it comes to the aerodynamic rake of these cars, it's a huge thing. It's absolutely huge, you know, but it can also be a very hard target to hit. That's why I usually operate within a zone when it comes to the rake on these cars. And once I'm in that zone, then I know, all right, I'm close. Now I'll fine tune it and adjust everything else around it to get the most out of it. And sometimes it works really well, and sometimes I'm off a little bit and I got to make adjustments during the race. But the main thing is that I know that I'm close, right? And that's hopefully what this will show you. So get out there, get a setup, whatever it is that you run, you know, iRacing stuff, build your own, whatever it is. But get yourself a setup and just do a few tests. Just do a couple simple tests. See if this changes anything for you. And you could go the opposite way, you know, raise the front end up a couple of clicks, drop the rear a couple of clicks, go run some laps, then do the opposite, right? Raise all four corners of the car or lower all four corners of the car, whatever, but just a couple of clicks and see if there's any changes. And don't just look at the tires or just scroll through your laps, you know, get the stint analyzer, see if there's any significant changes. Because with these cars, man, if you can increase your speed, right, improve your lap time by 1/2 tenth on average per lap, that adds up over a run. You start looking at a 30, 40, 50 lap run, and you're like, man, I saved myself 1/2 tenth per lap over those 50 laps. Now you're looking at a significant gain on the track. Okay, so you guys, that'll do it. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope this helps you. If you like it, you know what to do. If you don't like it, you also know what to do. All right, if you want to join me for any of my live streams, I do live stream a couple days a week. Right now the schedule is, you know, it's not set in stone. It's a little hit or miss just because, like I said, I am so busy with work. But for the most part, I usually will live stream like Sunday, Mondays, and Wednesdays. Sunday, Monday, Wednesday nights is what I've been doing recently. So if you want to join me for those, make sure that you're subscribed and you got that notification bell hit, or ticked, I should say. Also, if you want to check out any of the stuff that we have to offer at School of Sim Racing, just head over to schoolofsimracing.net. You can click the link down in the description below as well. Make sure when you go over there, click the button that says Join Community, and that'll get you access to all of the stuff that we have in terms of the Facebook group, the Discord group, which we've got, you know, like 5,000 people in there. And there's, you know, everything from asphalt NASCAR racers to dirt drivers and everything in between. And it's a great place to not only get help and learn, but also meet other people and, you know, run with them, race with them. You know, I've made really good friends in that community, people that I've, you know, met in real life now and talk to all the time. So it's a great community to meet other sim racers who love doing what you do, which is racing, right? That's why we're all here. So if you want to check any of that stuff out, links for everything down in the description below. But that'll do it. Thank you very much as always for joining me. Until next time, I want to wish you good luck, good racing. Take care.